going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about an X-Men book that I read today. All New X-Men, Volume 1, Ghosts of Cyclops. This collects the first 6 issues of the post-Secret Wars All New X-Men series from this year and I guess late last year, 2015. And so this is written by Dennis Hopeless and is drawn by Mark Bagley. And I want to go ahead and talk about the art real quick because I usually forget to do that if I don't do it right at the beginning of the video. I've always liked Mark Bagley's artwork. The first time that I encountered his art was on Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis in the early 2000s. And I liked his art quite a bit there, but his art here is very different. I was about halfway through the book before I remembered, hey wait, this is Mark Bagley doing the art here. There are a few moments in this book where I feel like Bagley is actually channeling John Byrne a little bit, and that is definitely a compliment, I think. I really love John Byrne's artwork anyway, but maybe Bagley would be insulted if he heard that I was comparing his art to John Byrne. I personally like his art quite a bit here. I'm not sure if I like it better than what he was doing on Ultimate Spider-Man or not, but it feels very different. It doesn't look like the same art that you saw in Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis and Bagley. So I really like the artwork here. I know some people have been kind of down on Mark Bagley for some reason. I have no idea why, because I've always liked his work since I've been reading comics and since I have known who this guy is. But I really like what he's doing here. I like all the costume designs in this book. I know a lot of people are very particular about costume designs for some reason. With this particular iteration of the X-Men, they only want them to be wearing their old school yellow and black costumes, which those were okay, but they're also 50-year-old designs. Maybe it's okay to tweak those designs and kind of do something new and different with them. So I really like these designs for these characters and their costumes. So that is what I think about the artwork. Now, as far as the story itself, I think that this is pretty good. In the same way that Extraordinary X-Men by Lemire and Ramos was mostly set up and was mostly getting the team together, I feel like this is kind of sort of a slow burn where we're getting this group together, but I think this book handles it a lot better. I enjoyed this book a lot more than I did Extraordinary X-Men Volume 1 because partly, I think this team is mostly already together at the beginning of the book. You've already got Angel, X-23, who's now calling herself Wolverine, Iceman, Beast, Evan Sabanir, the clone of Apocalypse, and Idie, who I guess her codename is Oya. She was the character introduced in what was the name? Generation M, I think. The series that had Hope, Generation Hope, that was the name of the series. That character who was introduced there and was later used in Wolverine and the X-Men. But she is here. And that whole group is already together, and the only one who's not part of the group is Cyclops. And the first half of this book, they are dealing with this group of terrorists slash thieves slash young punks who don't really know what they're doing. It's a bunch of mutants who we've never heard of before, and they're wearing adult Cyclops' X mask. They're wearing that mask, and they're going around saying like, hey, Cyclops taught us that we don't need to take any crap from humans. We need to just go around and do stupid stuff. So like they'll go to a mall, and they'll like flood the mall, and then they'll steal stuff. And that's basically all that we know about them. We don't really know anything about their ideology other than they're naming themselves after adult Cyclops. Several times they are described as just dumb kids, and that's basically the best way to describe them. They don't really have any ideology or ideas of their own, or really any motivation beyond let's use our mutant powers to just do whatever we want. They act like they're following in the steps of Cyclops, adult Cyclops, and I do not like adult Cyclops, but even I can say that these guys are not really acting like adult Cyclops. I think if adult Cyclops was alive, he would be telling these kids how much of an idiot they're all being. A collective idiot, I guess. I can't speak right now. But anyway, I don't really care one way or another about these Ghosts of Cyclops guys. They could come back in this series, and maybe Hopeless could do something with them. There's a couple of characters in that group. I could actually maybe see them joining the X-Men later on. Some of the girls in that group, they were not as on board with this whole let's follow in the steps of adult Cyclops thing, so I could maybe see them joining the team later on in the future. I don't know. But after that, we have the group is fully formed. Cyclops, young teenage Cyclops, is ready to be with the group once again. And then after that, they're going around the world stopping different catastrophes, and then they run into the Blob, who is capturing strange exotic monsters, and he's taking this monster to some cafe, and he's telling the guy, listen, you're going to cook this monster for me, and make it into an exquisite 5-star meal, and if I'm disappointed, then you're not going to be happy. And then the X-Men come, and he pretty much thrashes this team. He is very powerful here. It's really weird because most of the time the Blob is handled as not really a big threat, but here he's treated like he is a really big threat, and basically all of the X-Men are completely useless against him until Angel finally decides that he's going to beat up the Blob. And I thought that was really cool. Kind of weird that happens in this book, and then also that happens in X-Men Apocalypse. And I'm pretty sure that they weren't copying each other. I'm pretty sure both of those things happen independently, so that was a little unusual. And then Toad, we see that he's in a bar somewhere, pretty much just trashed. He is barely even able to put a sentence together, and then he sees teenage Cyclops on the screen of this TV, and then he's like, hey, I'm going to go kidnap that guy. So he kidnaps young teenage Cyclops at the end of this book, and that's all that happens in this book. It's going to sound like that not a lot happens here, but in my opinion, this has more going on than what Extraordinary X-Men had. Extraordinary X-Men, and I don't want to just keep comparing this book to that one, but if you're looking at all the post-Secret Wars X-Men books and you're curious which X-Men book should I be following in the aftermath of Secret Wars, I would say that All New X-Men is a better book to be following than Extraordinary X-Men, because the team, it doesn't seem like it takes as long for them to form together, and so for the first half of this book, there's actually stuff going on instead of all of these characters talking to each other about how they should all join forces. One thing I really like about this book is that pretty much every member of this team lineup gets something to do. They all have a little bit of a character arc. Angel is dating Wolverine, X-23, and that's maybe the weirdest part of this book, because out of all of these characters, Wolverine feels the most off. She feels almost jovial, very witty, and does a lot of banter, which is very unlike her character. Now, I have not followed the character of X-23 ever since her creation and introduction in the comics, so I don't know everything about this character, but I do know that about 10 years ago or so, she was in the new X-Men series, and she was very broody, very quiet, hardly ever spoke to anyone, was very scary and deadly. That was kind of her character traits. Here, she acts nothing like that, and I do know that she has been through several different series since then. She was in Bendis' Uncanny X-Men series, and I didn't read any of that stuff. She was in Avengers Academy or something. It was a series that Dennis Hopeless wrote. It was an Avengers series that she was in. So she's been used quite a bit since the last time I read her, but here she acts absolutely nothing like she did the last time I read her. So her character feels very off to me, but she and Angel are dating, and Angel does not like that she is basically throwing herself into danger. He kind of feels like that she's doing this just because she gets a kick out of being injured. Even though she will heal from these things, he feels like she's doing this just because she enjoys it. And so she's not really listening to him or paying attention to him, and she gets upset every time he tries to save her, and so they break up at the end of this book. So that's a relationship that I didn't really get invested in, because we didn't actually get a chance to see them as a couple. I didn't even get the feeling that these two really liked each other, because they were bickering so much over the course of this book. So who knows what's going to happen with these two characters in the following volumes. It looks like Angel is battling some inner darkness, so that'll be interesting to see that play out. Maybe it will play out differently than it did for the older Angel in the original timeline, where he gets apocalypsified by Apocalypse, but that's going to be kind of interesting to see. Idie, towards the very end of the book, it almost feels like Dennis Hopeless is like, oh yeah, I need to give her character something to do. So she walks into a monastery, not a monastery, it's a Catholic church of some kind, and she starts yelling at God, talking about how he's making her life difficult. And I think that's basically just to remind us, yeah, this is a character who is very religious. She has a religious background. We haven't forgotten that, because throughout the rest of this book, there's absolutely no mention of that at all. And while we're talking about Idie, I don't really like her haircut. She is here right there. You can barely see her. Her hair looks very different than it used to in Wolverine and the X-Men. Here, she looks a lot like Frenzy, who used to be an ally of Magneto, one of the Apocalypse, not Apocalypse, she was an ally of Apocalypse, but I was thinking of the Acolytes, but she was not an Acolyte, I don't think. But anyway, her haircut here kind of makes her look a little bit like Frenzy. I kind of liked her old haircut better than I do here. But anyway, all these characters, they've got something going on, and we get a little bit of each of them. No one character overpowers all of the others, and I think that's good. Even in a book that's called The Ghosts of Cyclops, you would think that Cyclops would be predominantly featured here, but he's not. He gets just as much screen time as pretty much everyone else. The only character here who really doesn't get anything to do is Evan Samanur. He's kind of just there. He does a few things, like he's, helping fight some of these supervillains, but he doesn't really get an arc like all these other characters. You've got young Iceman, who's dealing with, he's been in a closet this whole time. He's gay, and he's just recently come out, but he's still not sure if he wants to be very open about his sexuality, because as he tells Evan, adult Iceman has hid this from everybody for years, and so teenage Iceman is not really sure if he wants to be as open about it as he would like to be. And then you got Angel and X-23, they've got their relationship problems. You've got Cyclops, who very obviously does not want to grow up into the adult Cyclops that we've seen pretty much ever since Avengers vs. X-Men, and I would even say since earlier than that. He does not want to grow up into that. He wants to be a very different kind of person, and so he's struggling with that, and that's good stuff right there. I'm actually finding that I like teenage time-traveling Cyclops a lot more than I've liked any other Cyclops ever. And I've never really liked Cyclops. I know a lot of people pretty much just since Avengers vs. X-Men have started hating on Cyclops. I've never liked him. I've always thought that he was just a really despicable person. I really like teenage Cyclops here, though. I find him much more interesting and likable than any other version of Cyclops. And I've been kind of feeling that in the back of my mind ever since I read Volume 1 of Greg Rucka's Cyclops series, where I really liked him there, too. And then the other character who kind of is interesting is Beast. And Beast is like building this really cool not minivan, kind of a traveling hippie kind of van, but on the inside it looks a lot bigger than it does on the outside, and this is their traveling headquarters. They've got one of the BAMPs from Wolverine and the X-Men, and it can teleport this entire van anywhere on the planet as long as they feed it lots of food. And Beast is kind of sort of in charge. I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, Cyclops is running away from his responsibilities. If he's in charge, he feels like he's that much closer to being the adult Cyclops that he does not want to be, and so Beast kind of had to take over the team, and I really like that. I find that very interesting. I don't think I've ever seen Beast be in charge of any team ever, and I think it kind of works here, because you look at all these other characters, none of them would really work as a leader. Iceman, definitely not. He's way too immature. Angel, he's much too vain and involved in himself and his relationship. He wouldn't work as a leader. And Jean, she's over in Extraordinary X-Men, so she wouldn't work. X-23, she's just a hired muscle. She wouldn't work. So Beast is the natural choice of being the leader of this team, and I really like that they're taking his character in that direction, and I would really love to see them do more with him, trying to be a leader, but also basically trying to struggle with the fact that he's not a natural leader, and that nobody else really thinks of him as being the leader, because we've never seen him be a leader before, and now suddenly he's trying to fill that role. That'll be very interesting to see. And also, he's got this thing that I can take it or leave it, where he's kind of whining about how, because he is from 15 years in the past, roughly 15 years in the past, he is kind of complaining that technology has jumped so far in the time jump that he's made that all of his scientific inventions and ingenuity is basically pointless because society has caught up with all of his ideas. Like, he comes up with this algorithm where they can track all of these things that they need to stop, like a forest fire or a bunch of Cyclops terrorists or something like that. But then Evan is like, oh, hey, we need to go to Paris. It's on Twitter. There's this thing going on. And then Beast is like, oh, okay, so basically Twitter has made me obsolete. And I thought that was something that probably needed to be addressed, because, yeah, if you're from 15 years in the past, a lot of stuff has happened in the last 15 years. But at the same time, that's not something that I want to see Beast struggling with throughout this entire series. I would like to see him move past that pretty quickly. Overall, I thought this book was pretty good. It did take a little while to get going. I didn't really care about the Ghosts of Cyclops characters. There are a few of them that I wouldn't mind seeing come back, but I would like to see them be tweaked a little bit and reworked so that they're not just blindly following Cyclops without actually following his agenda. I would really like to see them be reworked as characters and used later on in this series. I think that'd be pretty cool. I have no idea what's going on with Toad here. Toad is a character, I don't think anyone has really known what to do with this character in the last, well, since I've been reading comics. No one's really known what to do with him. He was the janitor at the school during Jason Aaron's Wolverine and the X-Men run, and then he left the school. I think that he was dating Husk whenever they left. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I read all that, but I have no idea what Hopeless is doing with Toad. I don't know why he's kidnapping teenage Cyclops and why he's focused just on Cyclops and not all of these kids. But anyway, that is my thought on All New X-Men Ghosts of Cyclops. I thought it was pretty good. If you guys are looking to get into the X-Men, maybe you don't know that much about the X-Men, this is a good place to start. I don't think that there's very much about this that's going to stop you from understanding what's going on. It's pretty new reader friendly, and also if you're a big, longtime fan of the X-Men like I am, I think you'll really enjoy this. I personally, not to kick a man while he's down, but I enjoyed it a lot more than Bendis' All New X-Men, what I read of that series. So I really like this. I hope that you guys like this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back later in the week with some other videos. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.